So what if I asked you, what does that mean with regard to the Golden State Warriors if I say you got to go for it next year? What does that mean?
It means it's Adult Swim and the pool party's over. That's what it means, Mark. And it means, Jonathan, come in here. We need to have a conversation about your future in the association. And it means Jonathan Kuminga is on the move. Poole, Kuminga, and the 19th pick in the upcoming draft, you're all shipped. You're all out. In exchange, we get a couple of veterans, a couple of pieces who can help us right now. Right now, Mark.
So interesting to find out, because I do think there's a Jordan Poole trade coming. I do. It'd be so interesting to see what it looks like.
I don't think that if I'm another team, I'm not looking at Jordan Poole and his salary and thinking, yeah, this guy's the next Allen Iverson. He's the next. I need more than just Jordan Poole. Is what I'm saying.
That's right. But that's like looking at it solely on the surface from the perspective of one player and one team. In other words, other teams have people that they've soured on too. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like right now, this is not the comp. I'm not saying this is like Jordan Poole, but the Boston Celtics momentarily have kind of soured on Jaylen Brown at the price that it's going to take. Have they not? Right?
It feels like it, yeah.
But he's still a great
and maybe
player.
He's soured on them too.
Maybe. He's a second-team All-NBA player. Coming out of the playoffs, there are always players where the team has, like, soured on them, even if they're good players. The Knicks have soured on Julius Randle. The Sixers have soured on everybody. They're soured on Embiid. They've soured on James Harden, for sure. All of these guys. The Warriors have soured on Jordan Poole. A lot of the fans have soured on Klay Thompson. That's the way it is when you lose in the playoffs. So I think there are plenty of deals to be had out there, and I do think Jordan Poole is going to be on a different team next year. I also think this, though. When are the voices going to die? Apparently never. With regard to Steve Kerr messed up because he won't play and develop young players. And now, because Miami's got a couple of guys who are out there, such a weird dynamic.
Max Strus.
All right, so Miami puts a couple of young guys out there.
A bunch of them.
And they play well in the finals. Well, here comes Warriors Twitter. Oh, they can play in the finals.
Right.
Well, yeah, but a lot of them didn't play for long stretches during the season, and they believe that they're playing well now because they were able to sit back, learn, or get some messaging, and potentially also react to that messaging in the right way.
Oh.
Did the Warriors not have a young player who suddenly showed up in the playoffs in ways that he did not in the regular season?
This year?
Yes.
No.
No? See, I would argue Moses Moody did.
Well, he showed up last year.
Right. But
Moses Moody is no Max Strus.
Okay, fine. But did
and
he?
He's no Duncan Robinson.
But did he or did he not play better in the playoffs than he did in the regular season?
I think that's a little bit of a stretch in terms of making a comp to Miami.
Well, it's
because Miami has like Gabe Vincent, out of nowhere, and Max Strus and Duncan Robinson.
Some of those guys aren't as young as Moses Moody, but
right,
yes.
to that point, though, of undrafted, unheralded, unknown.
Well, I don't even mean undrafted, unheralded, unknown. I just mean young. The rub with the Warriors is
Miami's got
young.
nobody this young.
No,
they have nobody 21.
I don't even know what all their ages are. I'd have to
They're
look
all
at
like
their
the
ages.
23, 24 range.
They're young. They're sub 25 players.
Right.
Jordan Poole, 23, right? Yeah, they don't have any Kumingas who are 20. I understand that.
And Moses is 20.
But you've seen it. I have watched tens of people use this point. Oh, Miami can play their young players.
Right.
All right. So what might be going on the inside? I, for one, and I think you agree, we just got a window into it. Courtesy of the Draymond Green Show. It's a podcast. Don't know if you've heard of it.
Love it.
Volume Sports Network. Steve Kerr was a guest on Draymond's show. Take a good listen to what Kerr says about the Heat and their bench players. This is important.
None of those guys on Miami are sitting there saying, well, I didn't play, or man, they put in so and so. Like, they're just all about winning. And you know this from our groups that we've had. When you have that championship mentality, every guy's bought in, every guy's just trying to win. nobody cares about any of that stuff. You don't go into the locker room, saying, well, I should have played more. You just want to win. And that's the beauty of finding that magic when you have a championship team, is that everybody's bought in, and it makes the decisions for the coach really simple. You just go with your gut and go with whoever's playing well.
Well, now we got some new stuff, don't we?
Yeah, that's some stuff.
Now we got some new stuff.
You don't hear in that. You hear it, but you don't get to see it. Draymond Green is lapping that up like Goldilocks eating porridge at the Three Bears house.
Big smiles.
Not the one that's too hot, not the one that's too cold, but the one that's just right, as I borrow from Guru. That's what Draymond was doing. Draymond was loving,
of course,
that take from Steve Kerr. I'm just going to say this about the take, because Steve is right in terms of the way that those players are reacting. But if you look at their ages, Mark, in terms of the Miami Heat, Gabe Vincent is about to be 27 in a week. And Max Strus is already 27. Duncan Robinson is 29. These are some old dudes. So to expect the Warriors' young players, the babies, Jordan Poole, the oldest of which is 23, not quite 24, I think that gives us our answer in terms of, can they be that mature?
Well, okay. Can they be that mature? That's different, because what I hear people talking about is, can they be that productive? And yes, there are a handful of players in these playoffs who are either rookies, young players, whatever. Keegan Murray was one of them, who had a bad start to the series, but then he played really well. People, well, that rookie, he can play. Why can't your rookie play if their rookie can play? That's drawing a line that you're not allowed to draw, because they're not the same person and they're not on the same team. I'll tell you what I just heard Steve say. You tell me if I'm taking this a little bit too far. But what I just heard Steve say, this has nothing to do with whether or not Jordan Poole can be productive. It has nothing to do with whether or not Jonathan Kuminga can be productive. It has to do with the fact that both of them have been pouty faces. I don't care how old you are. This is the pros, and that's a no. You don't walk into Steph, Clay, and Dre's locker room and pouty face because you don't like the minutes. Honestly, where do you get off? Where do you get off? Now, am I making a leap? Potentially. He didn't use names.
It's like Bob Beeman over here.
But, I mean, come on. Who are we talking about here? We're not talking about Moses Moody, because you got to the playoffs and his minutes went up. And they spoke publicly, Steve did during the season, about how Moses needed some time to watch things. And Moses spoke publicly. I wanted to learn here, not learn down in college.
Right.
I wanted to learn here, so I'm here. And he handled it the correct way. He didn't pout. He didn't whine. He didn't complain. He didn't go to his agent. He didn't do an article in the San Francisco Chronicle. Because of all that evidence that we have, we know damn well who he's talking about. Jordan Poole, right after a game where he scored 0 points in the playoffs, went to the locker room and spoke to reporters about lack of opportunity.
Exactly.
So, and we know who he's talking about. And for me, this is a game changer. I don't want to hear about lack of development. If these two guys can't handle big boy sports, then I'm sorry. They should have been on the bench even more.
Well, I know what you're saying.
There's no room for bad attitudes.
Okay, you're right. But who are you going to play? Who are you going to play, Coach Kerr? If you can't play...
Who he plays.
If you can't play a precocious, truculent Jordan Poole, who clearly is not mature enough to handle the setbacks in his career, well, you can't play him. Jonathan Kuminga, you couldn't play him. You could play GP2, but not really. You played Dante. You played Kevon and the other starters. You didn't play J-Mike. You're running out of bodies here, kid. And maybe that's what Steve is saying in terms of the future of where they're going to go. Because if you look at Miami, Mark, and I'll refer you again to the ages of these players, Max Strus is a guy who is 4 years in the league now. He's 26 years of age. He's an older player. He's an older man than certainly Jonathan Kuminga, a guy who played... What, he played in G League Ignite,
right,
and then came in here, and he is going to be expectant of some sort of minutes that he hasn't yet earned?
I want to be very clear with the point that we're trying to make here, or at least I'm trying to make. This comp about young players is what I read from other people. It's not a comp that I'm making. I'm watching every night, social media. Oh, Miami's young players are allowed to contribute.
I get it, yeah.
Why aren't the Warriors? And so the fact that they're not the same age, I don't even, like, fine. That's not even really the core of the point. And in fact, if you listen to what Steve's saying, he's not talking about age either. He's talking about everyone being on the same page.
And maturity.
That's right.
Yes.
And so if you want to be, and again, how many titles has Steve been involved in the last 27?
9 of the last 28.
Do you think he knows a thing or two about the characteristics of a championship team?
He's been lucky.
Okay. Right.
Thank you.
So here we are ripping a guy who has been involved in 9 of the last 27 rings because he doesn't know what he's doing as far as who can and cannot contribute.
Or how to contribute and how to act. You're right.
To his effort toward a 10th ring. Twitter's got it figured out. If only he had put Kuminga in the game in November. If only Moody had been in January. If only he would have done that, then everything would have been different this year. Well, I'm pretty sure what he just said is those two kids were acting like babies all year long. And if that's the case, my man, not only do I have his back, I'd have pushed it a little bit further because we got all kinds of evidence that Jordan Poole, unfortunately out of necessity, was probably empowered too much over the last 2 years.
Maybe necessity.
Based on his behavior.
Right. Well,
why do you think everybody's so ticked off at him all the time?
Why do you think everybody's so frustrated in general? It's because of the situation that you just laid out. And we can excuse Moses Moody if we want, but Moses spent about 2 months in the regular year where he was unplayable. He wasn't playing well enough. He wasn't doing enough to where he could actually be on the court. And everybody wants to criticize Steve Kerr and the staff for not developing young players. I want you to go and look at the Miami roster, and you tell me who on the Miami roster is akin to Kuminga or Moody. And I'll tell you, his name is Nikola Jovic. He is
not Nikola Jokic.
No. Nikola Jovic. He's a rookie.
19.
He's going to turn 20 on Friday. And if you look at the minutes he's playing a minute here, 5 minutes there. He's getting GT only, garbage time. Tyler Hero is the next youngest, and he's not playing because he's hurt. You know the youngest guy on Miami who's actually playing and contributing? It's a guy named Bam Adebayo.
Yep.
And he'll be 26 in July. He's 25. He's the youngest player. So everybody out there who's saying, oh, Miami's playing their young guys. Why can't you, Steve? They don't have young guys.
Well,
their youngest player is 25.
By the way, they're also not the same. I wouldn't even care if they were. They're not the same person. That's like being like, okay, my kid's getting a C average in school. Well, my kid's getting an A average. Why is your kid getting a C average? Because you're not the same kid. They're not the same kid.
Right.
Do you need to hear this again? There's no doubt in my mind what Steve is saying right here. He's saying that Jordan and Jonathan were being babies all year long.
None of those guys on Miami are sitting there saying, well, I didn't play, or man, they put in so and so. Like, they're just all about winning. And you know this from our groups that we've had. When you have that championship mentality, every guy's bought in, every guy's just trying to win. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. You don't go into the locker room, saying, well, I should have played more. You just want to win. And that's the beauty of finding that magic when you have a championship team, is that everybody's bought in, and it makes the decisions for the coach really simple. You just go with your gut and go with whoever's playing well.
It's fascinating to me. I mean, I'm trying to think back to any of the 4 championship years and think if we ever really had much of a minutes conversation. Not much.
DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah.
But then he got hurt, and that settled that.
That was the end of that.
But pretty much never. Harrison Barnes was not happy with his usage, but he also was playing so poorly at the end of that first title run that he had to go. And, that kind of took care of itself.
What'd they do with him?
Right.
Now, granted, it was a little bit of a rare circumstance, completely. I understand, but Yeah,
I do look at the ages, though, in terms of the people and the personalities involved, and I do think it is a thing because Jordan Poole will turn 24 in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, he'll be 24. So he's 23, and he's got the bag. He's got the big bag waiting, and he's thinking, I'm a champion, and I'm not trying to think for him. I don't know Jordan Poole. We know that. It's well stated on this very program. But if you're Jordan Poole and you're 23, you're thinking, it's my time. Let me be the third Splash Brother. I can cook.
Wow.
Let me eat and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And if you're Jonathan Kuminga, you played 2 months in the regular year when Wiggins was out, and you played pretty well. So why can't I play now? And Kuminga won't be 21 for 4 more months. And you have a kid who's closer to 20 than Kuminga is to 25. Yeah. So you can speak to the relative immaturity of a younger person.
Well, and it's fascinating. Why did Kuminga play for those 2 months? Necessity. It's the same reason Jordan Poole plays. But I wonder does everybody hear themselves with regard to how you use maturity in both directions, depending on which you want? You want Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga to play. You want them to develop. Come on, they're ready. They're ready. They're ready. Then John Morant flashes a gun. You go, oh, he's just a baby. He's only 23. We can't expect him to act like an adult. He just got here.
He's a Leo.
He's a little kid. Just a little high chair for all of his team meals. You don't get to have it both ways.
Shut up, Bibbs.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Are they adults or are they not adults? And if they're adults, then Jonathan and Jordan need to start acting like adults.
Well, they are adults, but all I'm saying, Mark, is there is a relativity in terms of experience, and I'm not going to excuse the coaching staff and the leadership of the team, a.k.a. Draymond Green, from helping to foster the right culture. Because why? And I know Miami's players are older, and I do think that there's a huge gulf between 26, 23, and 20 years of age. And I mean, you know this based on your own life and my life. And I got a kid now who's almost 22, and I see where he is now versus when he was 20, versus when he was 18. There are certain awarenesses and responsibilities and maturities that come along with that. But I also do think that the organization here didn't do a good enough job in terms of fostering the right behavior from the young people. Maybe. It's my judgment, not yours.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'm Dan Dibley, and these are my words.
And I approve this message.
I don't want you to be tabbed with that.
No.
Part of it, to me, stems from what happened with Jordan and Draymond.
Right, although, again, what leads to a point like that? Like, every time something happens, you go, well, wait a minute, how'd we get here? Well, but how'd we get here? We tag so many things throughout the year and go, oh, because of the punch. Well, how'd we get to the punch?
Right.
Like, what led to that? I'd be curious.
Let me bring it home for you just real quick. And it's a little bit of a violent example for you because your kid is 16 and your other kid's 9. But if your 9-year-old was constantly coming for the 16-year-old, chirp, 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 and the 16-year-old one time decided, you know what? I've about had it with you, 9. Kapow, one time, the one piece. And I know it's different because 16 and 9 is like, whoa. Sure. But if it was 16 and 13, let's just say, and the 13-year-old would have caught a spicy hot wing with barbecue sauce, you'd be thinking a certain way about that.
Nobody is saying what Draymond did was okay. Like, you absolutely,
I know you're not.
Yeah, you absolutely have a point with the way this thing has been navigated from the high side as opposed to the low side. I just think everything's starting to make sense. That's what I think.
I agree.
I think everything
everything
is starting to add up, and the punch and the mouthpiece throw and the walking off the court in the minutes. It's all starting to make sense. You don't have to agree with it. You can think that you had to do it a different way, but the one area where I will agree is no matter whose fault it was, if y'all are chirping about minutes, about role, about treatment of one another, if this is what you're focused on after games, they never had a damn chance. They never had a damn chance in hell. And that's what Steve is saying
exactly
right there.
Right, yeah.
They never had a chance. That's his. When you heard them all say, oh, this is not a championship roster. And after the game, people were like, how the hell can you say that? It's the same roster largely that just won this last year. Now you know what they meant. It's not the personnel, it's how they were acting. They were not acting like champions. All of them. All of them. Old, young, and in between.
And that's why they traded Wiseman to get GP2. Not that they were going to totally give up on Wiseman, but they saw in GP2 a player you could bring in and instantly inject into that top 8, knowing that he's a guy who gets it. He knows what it takes to win a championship, and you hoped that Jordan Poole could come along, and you hoped that Jonathan Kuminga could play well in short minutes, and that Moses Moody could grow into something, and maybe your window would stay open. But knowing what we know now about the way it ended and the reason why it ended, how do you run it back? You can't.
Well, no, you can't. You can't. They won't.
Will they? Can they?
Not for $470 million.
We're not doing 470?
They're not doing 470. They're not doing 470.
Well, then what are they doing, Coach?
Something.
But what?
I mean,
I'm sick of this evasiveness.
If you can't tell that there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of, I don't know what to say anymore. Bob Myers just left. And
I was quietly relieved that the Clipper job got filled today and it wasn't Bob.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I thought that it was, but at least it's like, okay.
He's not going to take another GM job.
He better not.
He's going to be on ESPN being like, you have no idea what's going on there with the Golden State Warriors.
West.
Yeah, wait till you see.
He's got his own podcast.
I know he does.
When's the next episode drop?
Focus on that right after he takes the ESPN gig.